are in Hebrews. You can see in your bulletin. We are in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith. As many of you know that chapter. Very famous chapter. And I have discovered, going through this chapter, that I can't go nearly as fast as some people have done in the past. So, after spending numerous hours, because I had a lot of time this week, although I was pretty tired when I got home, so I'm not sure how clear of thought I was, but I had a lot of time. And try as I might and pray through as I might, I could not get through all three of these guys. So, I'm going to get through one of them today, and we'll see, maybe I can get through the last two next Sunday. So, we are going to basically then today spend the day on Hebrews 11, verse 20. 11, verse 20. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but there's a lot in the wings here. There's a lot here. It says, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. Now remember, this Isaac is Abraham's son, right? Remember, we ended last time with Abraham's test of his faith by putting Isaac on an altar, preparing to actually take his life as a sacrifice to God, and God provided a substitute, and Abraham passed that test. So now we're talking a little bit about today, about Isaac's life. Not a lot is known about that, but we're going to go through some of that today. Now, all through Hebrews, we've been talking about faith, haven't we? Faith, faith, faith. And we have discovered that in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews, the Holy Spirit, is convincing those people in this little church of Hebrew people, Jews, that Jesus Christ is the only way to the Father. And it's only through faith in Him. It's not through the works that you do. It's not through the rigmarole. It's not through the patterns and the rituals that they have been so used to. And so the faith comes up a lot. And he's proving that not only do people today come to God by faith, but people have always come to God by faith. That has been the only way he's ever accepted people in his presence, is through faith. Even though at this time in the history, the Jews had completely transformed that into a works system. And we've talked about all the works systems that are around today. You don't have to go very far down the street to find places today that are based on works, because that makes sense to our little brains, that we need to work our way. And yet that has never been God's way. You know, yesterday we celebrated a life of faith, unshakable faith, in the face of whatever came. Our beloved Becky had an unshakable faith. Actually, a much more commendable faith than this man we're going to be speaking about today, Isaac. We're going to talk about his life today. The thing that came across so strongly yesterday to me was the legacy that is handed down. And that's what we're talking about today, if you notice the title of today and next Sunday. And that is the faith we leave behind. People tend to think that when you go, that's it. But that is not true, is it? When we go to heaven, we're going to leave behind those people that we have loved, that we have been with, that we have influenced. And what we leave is what we're talking about. What we leave is what we're talking about. And what she left was an example of being a strong woman, didn't she? You heard that. A number of people mentioned that. As I talked to them after the service, while we ate, they mentioned how strong of a woman she was. And yet she was humble. She wasn't overbearing, but she was strong. And when her grandkids did something that wasn't right, she told them about it. And she stood up for the truth. And that is a great thing to leave behind. because it affects people in ways that are lifelong, but doesn't it? It really does. So I am so thankful as we get into Isaac's life that God, as he gives us examples of faith, both men and women in his word, he doesn't sugarcoat their lives. No, his word is true, and he does not lie to make their lives look better than they were. No, he tells it like it was. Let that encourage you, as it does me, to live for him with who we really are, not some fake ID. Let's not put on a different face, certain places, and take off that mask other places, okay? Let's be real, because God accepts us the way we are, and he works on us the way we are. We don't have to fake it with him. And we shouldn't be faking it with others either. No, Satan is the father of all lies, not God. So us, see, I was tired when I wrote this. Satan is the father of all lies, not God. So the way we behave ourselves in total truth all the time is incredibly, incredibly important. Now this morning, we need to go back to Genesis to figure this story out, don't we? These 3 verses that I was going to try to cover today cover basically chapters 12 to chapter 50 of Genesis. Did you hear that? Chapters 12 to chapter 50 in 3 short verses. Wow. Don't worry, I'm not going to preach through all those verses and all those chapters. But I do encourage you to read through those lives and to get more background on these guys that we are studying here and their lives and what they did at the end of their lives. So I encourage you to read through those chapters, chapter 12 through chapter 50, as many times as you can by next Sunday. And that will help you as we go through this together. For as you read, the Holy Spirit will teach you. That's one of the wonderful things that he does. Now, the main question for this study today is, what does it look like to be faithful to the end? What does it look like to be faithful till the end? And to pass that faith on to those around us when we go to heaven. Let me say that again. What does it look like to be faithful till the end and to pass that faith on to those around us when we go to heaven? Let's go back to Genesis, and we're going to start in 25. You can go back and read up to that point this afternoon or this week. That would be a good thing to do. In Genesis 25, we're going to start in verse 21. It says here that Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered his prayer. And his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies, that means there's 2 of them, the babies jostled each other within her. And she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to the Lord and inquired of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other. And then the important message right here, that was a shocker, the older will serve the younger. Now that went against tradition, right? Now, tradition still holds in many places in the world. The oldest son is the main inheritor, right? That's what things are passed down to. And here, God is telling them, no, the older will serve the younger. Now, when it came time for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. This is verse 25. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. A little wolf man. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to those boys. So those boys grew up, verse 27. Those boys grew up, and Esau became a hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So here you get to see the beginnings of a difficult situation, don't you? You know, when I talk to parents, young parents, and I talk about raising children, one of the things that comes up is the scripture that says, fathers, don't bring your children to wrath, right? Don't cause them to be angry. And one of the greatest ways parents can do that is to show favorites. To show favorites. And I see it all the time. You probably see it too. Maybe you were the favorite. And maybe you got the bennies of that. But you also got the reaction from everybody else around. So when you see in a family like this that one person takes one kid and the other takes the other kid, you know there's going to be trouble. And it's never going to be a peaceful home. It just cannot be. So Isaac, by this time, you see, has gone away, really, from his spiritual beginnings when he was willing to sacrifice his life because God had told his dad that was supposed to happen. Don't tell me the 20-year-old boy got up there on that wood by his dad forcing him. Okay? He could have whooped his dad very easily at that point. Anybody that has a 20-year-old son realizes that you don't want to wrestle them seriously anymore. And so, no, he has gone now to this shows me that he came to an earthly understanding. Okay, he's now gone back to the basics of life, to what makes him feel good, what satisfies him, and that's what he eats. And he likes venison. Okay, and he likes the way that his son Esau spices that venison, and he wants some of that venison. All right, so then we have mommy's boy, don't we? In Jacob. And Jacob is mommy's boy. And he's around the house helping her, doing things around the house. And she, of course, loves that. And Esau's never around. So we have the beginnings of this problem. Okay. Once, verse 29, when Jacob was cooking up some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. And he said to his brother Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was called Edom. Edom. Interesting name. A whole group of people came from that, the Edomites. And as you recall, this is a look way down the road to when Jesus would come to establish his kingdom that wasn't of this world, remember? And he met another king right before his sacrifice on the cross. Remember King Herod? Well, guess what? King Herod was an Edomite. Okay. So this looks clear ahead to Jesus the king on the one side. Remember the two different nations? Jesus the king over here and Herod the king over here. All comes from what we're reading about right here. Esau and Jacob. So, 31, Jacob replied, "Well, let me see. This is a good opportunity." He'd been thinking about this. Because his mom had told him that he was going to get the birthright and his older brother wasn't. So he thinks, well, I'll just help God out here a little bit. Tell you what, brother. First, sell me your birthright. And Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me if I'm going to be dead? I'm starving to death." But Jacob said, "Now, swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some of his lentil stew. He ate and drank and got up and left. So Esau, by doing that, it says, despised his birthright. That doesn't mean he hated it. It means he didn't give a hoot, did he? He obviously didn't even care about his birthright. No thought about that. He just wanted to be out in the woods, hunting deer and hunting whatever else they had there to eat. And that's what he wanted. He didn't have any concern for the message that he'd heard all his life. Now that his father was in the line that was going to not only populate the world with the Jewish nation, but bring the Messiah. He didn't care at all about that. Didn't care a bit about that. So Esau ended up joining, down the road here a little bit, he joined the Cain, the group that came from Cain and from Ishmael. And that line is today very present in the world, isn't it? That's the entire Middle East conflict. Started right here in these first chapters of Genesis, where the people that want to destroy Israel, and you hear them say it all the time, they come from this line that we're talking about, Esau's line. Still have that problem today. Let's go to chapter 26 now, and you see verses 1 to 6.
Genesis 25. Abraham had taken another wife, whose name was Keturah.
Hello. Okay. All right. Got something to say? That's okay, David. I'll listen. Chapter 26. Now, there was a famine in the land. Does this sound familiar? Remember Abraham? We were talking about last time. There was a famine in the land, and he went to Egypt. There was a famine in the land besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time. And Isaac went to see Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar, right on the border with Egypt. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. I will give them all these lands, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commandments, my decrees, and my laws." So Isaac stayed in Gerar for a while. Okay. Then he pulls a little trick that his father pulled. We get to see a little more about his character here. And that is in verse 7. Now when the men of that place asked him about his wife, what did he say? "She's my sister," because he was afraid to say she is my wife. He thought the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah because she's so beautiful. Now is that chivalry or what, guys? If you just read this, you would think that chivalry should have died back then. I mean, think of this guy. You can do anything you want to my wife, just don't hurt me. That's what he's saying. Unbelievable. But where did he learn that? From his daddy. That's right. Learned that from his daddy. His daddy did the same thing twice. We were reading about Abraham last week. You remember, he did that twice. So here, Isaac just follows his dad's example. And Abimelech, once again, realizes the truth, because he looks down one day and sees them making out. It's not what it says, but that's what it means. And the king saw that and he said, "Now wait a minute, you don't do that with your sister. Are you lying to me?" "Yeah, I lied to you," he said. So he says, "What is this you've done to us?" In verse 10, "One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech gave orders to the people, anyone who molests this man or his wife will surely be put to death. Now, what a trick to pull on your wife. Unbelievable. So we're seeing his character, aren't we? We're seeing his character. Has God's blessing on him changed? No. He is still carrying out his side of the bargain. Okay, and God does that. No matter what we do, God's will is going to be accomplished. And that is that through his son, Jacob, it is going to be accomplished. So, he's pulling in Abraham here. And then he comes to his death. Chapter 27, starting in verse 1. When Isaac was old, his eyes were weak, and he could no longer see. He called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "Hey, son, come here." And he said, "I am here." Isaac said, "Now I'm old. I'm an old man, and I don't know the day of my death. So then, get your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me, preparing me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, that I may give you my blessing before I die." Is that what he's supposed to be doing? He's supposed to get the blessing before he dies. The younger. Now, he's 137 years old when he says this. The guy lives 43 more years. Okay, give me a break. Maybe he was having a bad day, I don't know. But he lived 43 more years. No, what he's doing here is he's making an excuse so his son will go get him some more venison. "I might die, son. Go help me out." Okay. So that's what he does. And goes out to find some venison for him. Now Rebekah had her ear on the door, on the tent there, a little cup. And she was listening as Isaac told Esau this. So now it's her turn to help God. Well, do you ever do that? You ever try to help God do something? That work out really well for you? I spent years trying to help God change my wife. It's been a long time trying to change that woman. And you know what? She didn't change one bit. As hard as I tried. When I realized only God could do that and started praying for her instead of correcting her, guess what happened? Amazing changes. Most of that was in my brain. I realize that. But she did change too. Our kids will tell you. So, no, we need to let God do his thing. But these people are much like us, and they want to take over. She says in verse 6, "Look, I overheard your dad," okay, Jacob, and he was talking to Esau. He said, bring me some tasty food to eat, that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, son, you listen to me carefully. Do what I tell you. Go out to the flock, bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father. I can make it taste just like Esau's venison," is what she's saying. Just the way he likes it. Verse 10. "Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. God told me that's the way it's supposed to be, and he's not following what he's supposed to be doing. So I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it." So Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is all hairy. He's hairy, and I'm a man with smooth skin. How are we going to do that? What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him, and he would bring down a curse on me instead of a blessing." His mother said to him, "I've got that all figured out. Let the curse fall on me if that happens, but just do as I say and go get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared the tasty food just like his father liked it. And then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau. See, she knew he'd smell Esau because they smelled different. One was out in the woods killing critters, and one was in the house. You think their clothes smelled any different? Oh, yeah. He lost his eyesight, but he hasn't lost his smell. So mom's thinking of all the little tricks here. Go get the best clothes of Esau and put them on Jacob. Verse 16. She also skinned those goats and took the skin and attached it to the back of his hands and around his neck. Interesting costume, isn't it? Then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread that she had made. So he went to his father and said, "My father." Or actually, he probably said, "My father." He said, "Yes, my son. Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "Now, how did you find that deer so quickly? I know you're good, but you're back off quick." The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." The little voice thing wasn't tricking him, was it? Jacob went close so his father Isaac could touch him. Isaac said, "Now, this is the voice of Jacob, but these are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he blessed him. Then he asked him the question, "Are you really my son Esau?" And he asked his son, and he said, "I am," he replied, lying through his teeth, trying to help God when God didn't need any help. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." And Jacob brought it to him, and he ate it, and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." Bring up any thoughts? The kiss of betrayal, the kiss of dishonesty. The Judas, remember? So he went to him and he kissed him. Man. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he realized that he had been mistaken with the voice. Maybe Esau was sick or something, he didn't know. But he says, "The smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." A lot of that is much the same as the blessing given to Abraham, obviously. So what happens? Right after that, Esau shows up and says, "I've got some food for you, Dad." And Isaac said, "Who are you? You were just here. Deja vu. What is this?" And look at verse 33. Well, verse 32. He said, "I am your son, your firstborn Esau." Then verse 33. Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who is it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him. And indeed he will be blessed." I believe that right here, God brought it through to Isaac, that he had gone against what he had told Isaac to do when he told his wife, Rebekah, that the youngest should be blessed first, should be blessed. And he's caught right here. He realizes that God has done what he said he was going to do. No matter how much he tried to get out of it, no matter how many little twists he tried to turn in there to mess it up, it's happened. It's happened. So Esau freaks out and says, "Oh my goodness." What does Esau remember? He's already sold it anyway, right? But he says, Dad, you've got to bless me. You've got to say something. So in verse 39, he blesses him with this blessing. Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword. You will serve your brother. And when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke off your neck, from off your neck. Lesson learned here, brothers and sisters, that our faith will always ultimately submit to the will of God. Our faith will always eventually submit to the will of God. So don't waste your time fighting it. Don't waste your time fighting it. Verse 33, God had told them that it would be this way. If they, all four, would have done it God's way, look at all the pain and all the strife that family could have avoided. The end of chapter 27, you can read it this afternoon. I'll just tell you what happened. You know what Rebekah got as a reward for her meddling in the will of God? She never got to see Jacob again the rest of her life. Spent the rest of her life running, basically, from his brother, who had vowed to kill him for what he did. It's a price to pay, isn't it? What a price to pay. So, no matter what we do to try to avoid the will of God in our lives, though however much we fight him, however much we try to work around him, it's not going to work. I'm just here to tell you. And that's what this example gives to us. And yet, even though Isaac had not lived the life that God had chosen him to live, the life that God wanted him to live, he, at the end of his life, well, this is 43 years before he died, but he thinks it's the end of his life, because he's not feeling very well, he still gives this blessing, which is the blessing that will continue on to the next generation. And that's what we're all called to do. And next week we're going to discover how that works with these two other guys. And how that has continued to be passed down. So my question for you, and like I was reminded this morning, pretty much the message I preached yesterday is the message I have for today as well. What are you doing to pass down the faith that you have? Have you told everyone in your family about your faith? Or are you afraid to do that to somebody? Have you told those neighbors that you get along so well with? Have you told those people you work with that you all love? You love all, you just get along great? Have you told them all about Jesus? Have you told them of your faith? So when you go, they will remember, oh yeah, Brent talked to me about God one time. I wonder what that was all about. That could be the seed, brothers and sisters. That could be the seed that brings them to believe. Amen, sister. Amen. So that's my challenge to you. Go through your contacts on your phone. Those people you talk to on a regular basis. And check in your mind whether they know of your faith. They know the details of your faith. And if they don't, tell them about it. You don't have to get mad about it. You can do it in love. Because you love them anyway. That's why you're around them all the time. But what a way to show them that you love them. Is to share that faith so it can be passed on to the next generation. I have young couples tell me on a regular basis that I'm not having any kids. Mr. Carlson, we're not going to have any kids because, I mean, look at the trouble the world is in. Look at all the trouble the world is in. There's just hardly any hope for a child today. And I can have that opportunity to say, oh, the opportunities are great for children today. I encourage everybody I know to have 4 or 5 kids. Are you kidding? Raise them up in the Lord. Be a witness for God. Be a witness to change lives in this world. What a greater opportunity. We've never had this great of an opportunity. All around the world. People are coming to the Lord like crazy. The harvest is there, just not many people to go harvest it. So no, I encourage all these young couples, especially Christian couples that love the Lord. Bring up children in the Lord. Bring them up to love Jesus. So we can pass our faith to them when we go. What a joy. What a joy to hear grandkids yesterday saying that they are Christians today and they love Jesus because of their grandma. It's not what you want to hear. It's what I want to hear. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this example today of this man who, even though he lived a different life, still, at the end, chose to pass the blessing, pass the message on of his faith in you and what you would do. Even though he never saw it come to pass, he still had the faith to believe it. And Father, as we share our faith with others, we may never see the results of that. We know that. That's part of what we are to learn today, is that we may never see the results. We don't know those results. But you do. And you have a plan. And if we could just be part of that plan, what a joy for us to be able to serve you in that way. I pray that each of us would be bold, and each of us would go through those people that we know and find the time to sit down with them and share our faith. Not to judge them, not to give them any judgment at all, only love. And through that love, an opportunity to come to you, to find the love of their life, the love that can save them, the love that can bring them to an eternity with you, the love that you offer. Father, thank you for being here with us today. I pray that we could take this lesson to heart. Be with each one as they go out into this world. Help us to be shining lights for you. And we will give you the praise and the glory for it. In Jesus' name.